Hello there, this is your favorite tutor, Mr. Benji. Again, in this tutorial, I will demonstrate how to understand how to use the concept of the mean and apply such knowledge in analyzing numbers from various different samples precisely when working with combined samples. Okay? Figuring out their combined mean. Assuming we have 3 samples. Okay, just make the assumption that we're working with 3 samples here. And our task is to figure out the combined mean of 3 samples. And here are the 3 samples. Let's take a look at their specific characteristics. And here they are, the 3 samples. Now for every sample, the information that we have is number 1, their sample size. Okay, sample 1, their size is 10 scores. Sample 2, 7 scores, and sample 3, 5 scores. Okay, we have this piece of information. Now another piece of information is also presented, their individual respective mean. So what we're getting at is that sample 1, we know the size, we don't know the individual scores. However, these 10 scores, the average of these 10 scores, the mean is 3. In sample 2, the mean for the 7 scores involved is a 6. And for sample 3, the mean of the 5 scores is 4. Okay? It is 4. Now, think about this. In constructing or in formulating in our heads what exactly are the features of this combined sample. By combined sample, we're putting all 3 samples, the 10 scores in sample 1, the 7 scores in sample 2, and the 5 scores in sample 3, we're putting them together into one sample. That's the meaning of a combined sample. And there you go. Let's just organize information that we have so far about this combined sample. Okay, combined sample. When working with combined samples as well as various different samples that we're combining, one way to stay on top of the analysis, one way to be extremely clear with regards to what is what, we can use subscripts. Okay, we can include subscripts in the letters that we use to describe the information we've been given. By subscripts, I'm referring to, for example, for sample 1, N1 and M1, they've been given. N1 is the number of scores in sample 1. N2 is the number of scores in sample 2. And N3 denotes the number of scores in sample 3. N1 is 10 scores, N2 is 7 scores, N3 is 5 scores. Now, what about M? Can we use the same subscript? Absolutely. M1 is the mean for sample 1. M2 is the mean for sample 2, which is 6, the value of 6. M3, the mean for sample 4. All right, sample 4. When we ask for a combined mean, the combined mean, we cannot eyeball the combined mean simply by looking at M1, M2, and M3. Okay? You may have some sense of relatively what the combined mean might be around in terms of value, but don't try to eyeball it. Do not try to eyeball it. Go through the procedure of figuring all of those out. To begin with, let's determine the N and the M. Let's determine how to indicate the N and the M. So n subscript c, I'm using the letter C to denote combined sample size. So the combined sample size n subscript c essentially is the sum of n1, n2, as well as n3. I hope this is making sense. Okay? And when we add n1, n2, n3 up, what we get is 22 scores. No surprises, we're adding 10 to 7 and then to 5. The number is 22. We have 22 scores in the combined sample. Okay? Now what about the mean of the combined sample? We do not quite know yet. Let's just be very, very humble to say we don't know yet. And for that matter, we don't really know what the total, okay, the summation of all scores, the summation of all the scores, all 22 scores, we do not know this yet. What we can do, and this is what I like to do for clarity's sake, is to put a bracket before indicating the subscript C, which is something that a piece of information that at some point we'll have to figure out. Now, why the bracket before the subscript C? If I do not use the bracket and put summation x subscript C, what we're communicating is the x scores in the combined sample, which is not inaccurate, okay? This is not inaccurate at all. It's just the process of being clear on what we're referring to. But since I've described it, you are welcome to take the parentheses off and refer to what we need to look for as the combine of all x subscript C values. Okay, all 22 subscript C values. All right. So there are a couple of things for us to figure out. Back to the idea. Okay, back to the idea. If you recall the conversation around population mean and sample mean, the two formulas are fairly similar, but the terms are different. So the terms that we use are slightly different between the conversation discussing population mean and that which discusses sample mean. For population mean, we use the letter mu to describe sample mean, whereas for sample mean, we use the big M. And with the population size, we use the capital letter N, whereas for sample size, we use the small letter n. In this situation, it is most appropriate to use the formula for not the population, but for the formula of the sample mean. Why? Well, take a look at the question. Find the overall combined mean for the following 3 samples, not population. So pay close attention. If you, instead of using, well, in calculating the answer here, if instead of using the sample mean formula and you use the population mean formula, you will probably arrive at the same answer, but by the requirements regarding convention, you really should focus on the use of sample mean, the formula for sample mean. Capital M equals summation of x divided by small letter n. Okay? Now, I've done the work for you. If we rearrange the formulas in such a fashion, if we rearrange the formulas to give us summation of x in all 3 samples, we're able to figure out the summation of x by multiplying for each of the 3 samples the mean and their sample size. Mean multiplying the sample size. Okay? And so, as you can see, summation of x in sample 1 is 30. Summation of x in sample 2 is 42. And summation of x in sample 3 is 20. Now, in order to figure out the mean of the combined sample, M subscript C, we need this information. We need the sum of x's in the combined sample divided by the number of scores, okay? The sample number, sample size in the sample. Because we have the respective summation of x's for each of the 3 samples, okay? Summation x1, summation x2, and summation x subscript 3, we can add these numbers, 30 plus 42 plus 20, which gives us so let's keep going with the formula here. M subscript C equals, now what exactly is total of all the x scores in the combined sample? Well, the total is, we add up the 3 numbers, 30 plus 42 plus 20, obtaining 92. N subscript C is the population size of the combined sample, and the combined sample together, there are 22 scores. Final step, figure out the fraction, convert the fraction into a decimal number with decimals, and we obtain 4.18 recurring, okay? 4.1818181818, which we can indicate as 4.18 with a bar on top if you want to, but taking 2 decimal places, the mean, okay, the mean for these samples is 4.18. There you go. Pretty straightforward, right? Pretty straightforward. Okay? If you've done sufficient number of these kinds of problems, you may be able to quote unquote eyeball roughly what the combined mean would be for X number of samples, 2 samples, 3 samples, 4 samples. My recommendation is that you do not cut corners. Do not cut corners and go straight to laying out very, 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 very clearly all the various different pieces of information that you have, pieces of information that you need. How do you get from pieces of information that you have to the information that you need? Hope this tutorial helps. Nothing is in the way for you to rewatch this video and gain further clarity and mastery of the subject matter. More of such will be made available in the foreseeable future. Hit the like and subscribe buttons to stay up to date on quality tutorials that can help you succeed in your studies. You've been watching Mr. Benji at Mr. Benji Now on YouTube. I'm a college instructor in Vancouver, BC, Canada. So long, until next time.